35mm versus 50mm. A long time battle before I was born. Let's talk about it. So I've made a video in the past where I was really debating and just conflicted. Should I invest in a 50? Should I invest in a 35? If I have both, is it redundant? So, number one, I'm just going to give you my position. At first, I thought 35 and 50 are redundant. I'm going to say if you are a solo shooter, it can be very redundant because 35 and 50 are very, very, very close. Sometimes it's just taking a couple of steps back or a couple of steps forward. Yes, there's difference in compression, but in terms of the field that you're going to capture or that you want to highlight, it might just be taking a few steps back or forward. So in that sense, if you're a solo shooter, it might be redundant. So you might not want to lock up so much money investing in the best 35 and the best 50. Maybe pick the one that you prefer the most and get the best of that, and then have the other one, maybe a less expensive option available for you to do those different shots. That could be a difference between getting a 50-1.4 with a 35-1.8, or the other way around, 35-1.4 or 1.2 with a 50-1.8, something like that. So that's my first thought. Second, if you're shooting with if you have two people shooting, for example, at a wedding, and which is my case, and that's where I changed my opinion, you are not always in the same room together and you're not always shooting the same thing. And you're looking for diversity of shots. So someone using a 35 and someone else using a 50 actually might complement, because one is getting something slightly wider, one is getting something a little bit tighter, and they're not in the same position. So you might be getting very different looks from that, and maybe one of those people is in a slightly tighter space. So if you plan and you know where you're gonna be, maybe someone's using the 35 for the tighter space, one's using the 50 for the area that has more space. Then again, that's just, if you can plan it that way, that's the way I see it. So in my case, that's the way I prefer it. 35 with one person, 50 with the other. You're still getting similar looks, but still slightly different perspective, and you're not in the same spot. So that's where it wouldn't be redundant. And then finally, the third thing about 35 versus 50. If you are a person that just can't, or you're trying to make up your mind on which one you prefer, I'm going to tell you what every photographer has been saying about these focal lengths. Get a zoom lens first and test out. What would you use more? Test it out at 35, test it out at 50 if your zoom has that range, and see where you end up falling. The risk in using a zoom is that you might get stuck with the zoom and not experience a 1.8 or a 1.4. So that one's a little bit more iffy. That really depends on how novice you are, how much you need to explore still in photography to get comfortable with knowing which focal lengths you want. And then I'll end with a fourth. The fourth one is just pick one and try it out. You can't make a decision unless you use the lens. So if you can get a 35 or a 50 right now, just get one of those, use it, use it, use it. When you have the chance to get a 35, test it out or rent them. God, we just want you to test out the lenses so you know how they work. That's the point of this. So 35 versus 50. I don't think one is better than the other. I think they are slightly different. You can use them in different ways, but they're very similar at the same time. I think I'm confused now. Thanks for watching this nonsense video.